Hello, I've been gone for a little while. Been dealing with some of my different things that I have to deal with my disabilities, so I have not been able to blog very much. But I would like to thank those of you, those dogged few survivors who still read my blog when I'm able to post. God bless, thank you very much. You mean a lot to me. And so I just wanted to touch base on something that I've been working with for a little while in dealing with this Joe Biden candidacy for president in 2020. So for me, it's been just a pretty enormous trigger, and I think that the way people are talking about this is absolutely brutal for me as a survivor. I'm glad that the hubbub has died down about him a little bit, and I'm looking forward to the point when he realizes he's politically unviable and has to just go away to the boneyard and die, so that the rest of society can sort of take a step back and see that Joe Biden is actually like the poster boy of rape culture on the left. So the conversation that I've been kicking back against and taking a ton of flack for has been vote blue no matter who, to which I give a hard no. Sorry. My first opportunity to vote, like I was excited to vote as soon as I turned 18, and I registered to vote against Reagan in his reelection. And of course I got trounced, and that was basically my whole life. For the most part, I have been holding my nose and voting blue no matter who. And you know what? Fuck that. I would never vote for a Republican because they're disgusting, and they always have been. But, you know, I've been holding my nose and voting blue forever, and at this point I'm just not feeling it, especially when I feel so extremely disrespected by the Democratic Party in terms of them not telling Joe Biden to sit down and shut up. So if you are like me, a rape survivor, or if you are a blue-leaning person who just kind of doesn't understand what my objection is about Joe Biden, because there's an extreme amount of gaslight going on about this, and that's what I need to get to. I need to be the ungaslighter general about Joe Biden. Joe Biden is the poster boy of rape culture on the left. So the fact that they're even thinking about running him as a candidate again in 2020 makes me absolutely despise him, the way he has handled this. Like I never liked him. I never trusted him. He's always been well to the right of me. He's always been a person who sells the progressives right down the river to the Republicans like every time. It's kind of weird to me that people think that he will be more of Obama, because he was actually like the old white man sent in to make sure Obama didn't get too frisky. You know what I mean? So it's really weird to me that a lot of the young African Americans seem to think that a vote for Biden is a vote for more Obama. Like God, he's disgusting. Anyway, so if basically this is my little helpful guide for how to listen to people talk about Joe Biden if you are a survivor, if this is painful for you, or if you are just someone who has never been raped and you would like to know how to be a better ally about this, how to understand this from the vantage point of a sexual assault survivor. Basically, what I've discovered is that when someone wants to talk to me about Joe Biden, his supporters are almost exclusively men and unraped women. Joe Biden is pretty much the symbolic archetype of male privilege and entitlement. That's why he's running for president again. He feels entitled to run. He's been running for president ever since he was legally old enough, and nobody's ever wanted him to be the president before. He got to be Obama's chaperone for a while, so that was a net negative for me, I think. But whatever. So the thing with the people who are in support of Joe Biden is they almost never have any personal experience with rape. And I'm going to get a little farther down in this video. I'm going to get to those who claim to have experience in rape and absolutely do not, because that is a significant minority of the rape culture population on the left, is those who will claim Me Too just to shut you up because they don't like what you're saying about Joe Biden's absolute inappropriateness. Does Joe Biden's history of touching and fondling and kissing women and young girls disqualify him from the presidency? Absolutely. He has shown absolutely zero regard for the personal boundaries of women. And even after being told by 7 different people within the first week, literally 1 different accuser each day, that this came up, that they were very uncomfortable with his behavior, he did the opposite of apologize. He didn't even take ownership for, I made those people feel uncomfortable and awkward. Like, I left a bad taste in 7 different people's mouths about this all this time, and they didn't have an opportunity to step up until now. So if you were a decent person at all, you would apologize for that. But what Joe Biden did was actually the opposite of apologizing. What he said was, times have changed, and now women are beginning to feel that they can and should come forward with these things. Well, guess what? You know what? People who were enslaved already knew. They already didn't like it then. They just didn't have any opportunity to say anything about it, right? Like, nothing changed from their side. Same with raped women. We've never been able to talk about it, but we always knew it sucked. We knew it sucked even at the time. It's a no-brainer. Furthermore, there's plenty of people back in the olden days, plenty of white people who wouldn't even want to own slaves because they were disgusted. So the same argument that I get in favor of Donald Trump and Roy Moore, even Brett Kavanaugh, and certainly Joe Biden is, well, things were different back then, and it was okay back then. No, it wasn't. The people who were enslaved knew it wasn't okay, right? The women who were raped knew that wasn't okay. The people who were denied housing in the 1940s and whatever, they knew it wasn't okay, right? It's really a stupid argument. There were plenty of people who did not participate in lynchings because they were disgusted by the whole idea. They may not have been able to end racism, but they didn't play all the way along with it, right? And so I'm sure that there are some viable presidential candidates who we don't even have this conversation about. They just don't have this baggage. Like for me, Ralph Northam, completely inappropriate for president because of his lapse of judgment. As a white person, I was a white person back at the same time he was at that party. I think that was in the 70s. And I was 13 back then, and I went to a lot of parties with a lot of white people. If I had walked in and seen anybody either in blackface or in a Ku Klux Klan outfit, I would know that's not my party and walk right back the fuck out. Same way, it's like good touch and bad touch. Does that feel right to me? Is this my party? No, no, it isn't. I need to walk back out. Right? It's the same way with the good touch and the bad touch. You will see Joe Biden in these videos on YouTube. Please, you go and look at it yourselves if you haven't seen this. I don't need to be re-traumatized looking at his perversions. If you watch these videos and you see him touching young girls, their hair and their faces and their necks, and they recognize it as bad touch and walk right away from him, and then he comes and brings them back. It's very difficult for me to watch as a survivor. So if you would like to go forward with a little bit of an understanding now about how to approach this Joe Biden conversation, if you would like to be a good ally yourself, if you are a survivor and you would like to not be trolled and triggered every 5 minutes by people who are either overtly being nasty and defending rape culture, or are just oblivious because they have not paid their dues, and we unfortunately live in a culture where everybody has an opinion about everything, whether they have any information or not, okay? When you are a rape survivor, it's a weird thing because you get thrown into this club that by definition nobody joins voluntarily, and then you have to keep that a secret from everybody or they hold it against you. And then they all discuss it as though it wasn't a real thing because you're not allowed to tell them about the real part ever. And then they will tell you that you're incorrect. It's called gaslighting. But people who have never been raped will, without one moment of hesitation, assure me, the rape survivor who has been disabled by this crap since 1972, will, without a blink, tell me that I am wrong and they are correct about Joe Biden. They understand that Joe Biden situation, and I need to get with the program and vote blue no matter who, to which I say, go fuck yourself. So if you would like to not be that jerk, or if you are a survivor who would like to not get chewed up by these people because there's an army of them, stick along. So the first big thing to notice, like when I hear people talking about any kind of sexual assault adjacent conversation like Joe Biden's presidency, I want to know whether they are hashtag me too or hashtag not me personally but. They're almost always in the second group. Not me personally but. This is what I just explained in detail. This is the men and unraped women who are perfectly comfortable within rape culture. These are the people who they are not personally threatened by men getting into their physical space without permission. So that either has not been a problem for them or they don't, whatever. It's a kind of privilege that a lot of us don't have. So there's two different Here's a two-pronged thing. There are two like articles of faith with those people. One, they assume that Lucy Flores is the very first person to ever have mentioned to Joe Biden that this was inappropriate. Like this is all news to him, right here in like March of 2019. Like that's the very first time he's ever had a cluegram sent to him. The clue phone has never rang for Joe Biden before. Okay, that's an obvious and ridiculous lie. Obvious and ridiculous. I'm sure he's been told hundreds or thousands of times over the years that the way that he interacts with women and very young girls is disturbing and people don't like it. Like if we were able to really litigate this, which we won't because he's going to drop out of the race, at some point his ego will falter and he will accept the news, the reality check, Joe, that you are a dinosaur from the history yard, the boneyard of history. Please go back there, have your Geritol. But in the meantime, tween time, we got to deal with this. So they all act like Lucy Flores is the very first person to ever have mentioned this to him. That's patently untrue. That's obviously stupid and wrong. Creepy Joe Biden has been on Know Your Meme for like 5 years now. Even when he was very popular, people, and it still wasn't a problem, right? Like they all knew he was a creeper, and this was the people that liked him that were doing that meme. So, this is just about rape culture, whether we're going to think it's a problem if a guy, grandpa that everybody likes is also a creeper. I don't know what it's going to take for people, but yeah, so the assumption that Lucy Flores was the first person to ever mention it, that's the step one of the gaslighting. Step two of the gaslighting is they have either no explanation or some utterly absurd explanation for the hair sniffing, okay? Now, to me, when I brought this up with my therapist, who is trained to work with sexual assault survivors, she understood that exactly the same way that I did. Like those of us who are well-versed in understanding what sexual assault looks like and how it works, we totally get this about Joe Biden. There's no mystery, there's no confusion. The gaslight cannot penetrate to where we live because out here on the margins of society, that is just some rape culture bullshit, period, click. This thing where he goes over women and girls' boundaries every time he wants to and he gets a free pass as long as he says he didn't mean nothing by it, that is locker room talk, honey. That is Trump's locker room talk being applied to Joe Biden. He didn't mean anything by it, okay? Then when they say, oh, well, things were all different back then, okay, Roy Moore, okay, Joe Biden, like I just said, the people who are on the receiving end of this bullshit always know it's wrong, and there's always people within the privilege group that also know it's wrong and don't do it. So those two things are gaslight. This thing about the hair sniffing, you got to understand, again, as a sexual assault survivor, as a woman who's had my personal space invaded many, 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 many times by different men, women's hair is a very big kink for a lot of men. That's why so many women wear the hijab. Technically, literally, that's exactly why they wear hijab, because men are so quick to fetishize our hair. I don't see Joe Biden sniffing the hair of any men. Okay, yeah, he hugs and he touches men weirdly, but I don't see him sniffing that hair, which is several different perversions, as far as I'm concerned, several different fetish behaviors all at once. Until somebody can prove to me that he's not taking that back to the spank bank every time he sniffs somebody's hair and kisses them and touches a little girl's neck and shit, unless somebody can prove that to me, that that's not going straight into his spank bank, I can see what I'm looking at. Okay, that walks like a duck, quacks like a duck, and floats on the water. It's a duck. So just know that's the gaslight. Once you are in that conversation where the person wants you either to convince them, and because the question about like Lucy Flores being the very first person to ever mention it, notice that puts all of the Joe Biden's lifetime of bad behavior on Lucy Flores in that one moment. She was supposed to be that 9-dimensional chess master to step forward and be like, no, Joe Biden, I don't like that when you sniffed my hair. She was not prepared for it. He was prepared for it because he does that shit all the time. So he had the element of surprise on his side. But these people want you to explain why she wasn't that 9-dimensional chess wizard getting ready to go make an extremely important speech, having some weirdo now getting sexual with the back of her head. And I understand she said she didn't feel it was sexual because people who have never been sexual assaulted just have no idea the grenade that you are putting in your mouth when you try to say that was an actual sexual thing. Look how ugly people have been about it, even when she said it wasn't sexual. It's overtly sexual. I don't understand how they're trying to argue that it wasn't sexual. That's called gaslighting. So, why is she coming forward now? First of all, we've just put the entire onus onto Lucy Flores. This is rape culture. When you're going to be very critical of each and every accuser. We need to fully vet her before we are going to answer any questions about the accused, right? So we've got, why is she coming forward now? Then we've got the whataboutism. Anyone who drops whataboutism into this conversation is coming from a shitty place, and you need to just, whataboutism is a red flag. I am talking to a troll. Rape culture starts with all scrutiny on the accuser, zero on the accused. Why didn't she handle it better? No, why didn't he not do it? Okay, I saw one instance, the many videos, they all also, the other part of the gaslighting is, oh, well, I haven't seen that. Link me or it didn't happen. Link me or it didn't happen. Okay, look, the links are all over the internet, man. If they're not trolling you, they are actually better able to go and look up that shit than you as a survivor are. Because for me as a survivor, every time I look through those videos looking for a specific one to make a specific point, that's emotionally traumatic for me because I'm watching an old man do his fetishes on little girls. I'm not fucking for it, okay? So for the people who are no skin in the game, the not me personally but people, the men in unraped legion that love Joe Biden, you go do the research, douchebags. Anybody who wants to send you, the survivor, to go look through these disgusting videotapes to prove the obviousness of things they refuse to admit, you know what I mean? Yes, I have a nose on my face. Can you look at it, or do you need me to find it for you? Let them go look it up. Then you got to be careful about the... Okay, I'm going to move into a different category now of the hashtag #MeToo for Biden or the hashtag Men Against Toxicity. Okay, I don't think Me Too for Biden is an actual hashtag, but I have seen a lot of so-called Me Too supporters that are also very big Biden supporters, and then that hashtag Men Against Toxicity actually freaks me out a little bit. So there's a couple of things that come up within this crowd of people, which this is, now you're getting into a whole deeper level of gaslighting that I think is actually malignant. A lot of them are concerned about the effects of Me Too on men. They're Me Too survivors, they're Me Too supporters, but they really want to make sure that it doesn't go too far and end up damaging society so that men no longer feel comfortable. There's also the thing where they want to make sure that in case anything bad ever happens to a man, that he's basically going to go to the front of the line for the rape survivors. So especially if a man ever gets assaulted by a woman, then all of the conversation about institutional sexism and rape culture, all of that's going to grind to a halt while we deal with the fact that some woman violated some man that one time. So that's just a douchebag conversation. At that point, you're talking to basically a men's rights advocate or someone who is arguing in favor of rape culture and male privilege for whatever emotional reasons of their own. It's deeply toxic and you should run. Now, with the Me Too, with the Men Against Toxicity, okay, I saw that and I thought, oh, well, that's good. Maybe some of them would be potential allies that I could tag in to explain how rape culture works to people who just really don't get it when they want to talk to me about why don't I hold my nose and vote for Joe Biden. You know, the people who are throwing things around like, oh, well, this one you don't like Bernie's hair, or you don't like it that Klobuchar ate this with a comb, ate a salad with a comb, you know, that's not the same as having a Me Too problem with Joe Biden. So that false equivalency, anytime somebody starts throwing a false equivalency, that's the same thing they do on Fox News. That's another version of whataboutism, okay? You cannot lump in Joe Biden's absolute refusal to respect the personal boundaries of women and girls throughout his entire life with, you know, Bernie having weird hair and Amy Klobuchar having certain social awkwardness. That's whataboutism, and again, that's bullshit. That's a bullshitter. Don't talk to that person. So then you have the really deeply toxic people. Oh, wait, before I moved to that, the other thing is they want to discuss, the one guy started out with being a Me Too for Joe Biden guy, which blows my gaskets. And then the other one was doing a little lecture on, you know, the toxicity of men and women, how women can be toxic in society too. Again, dude, if you're talking about like overall toxic, you're a man talking about overall toxicity as if we don't live in rape culture, as if male privilege was not a thing. So if you want to know as a survivor whether you can have an actual grown-up human conversation with somebody and they're not trying to gaslight you rock hard with this stuff, because some of them have been decent people that have just needed to really have me explain it to them to break through that gaslight. So I gotta be open to that. but just watch for the red flags. The whataboutism is never an honest mistake, okay? All scrutiny on the accuser, zero on the accused is never a mistake. That is absolutely someone who is trolling you. But this thing where they want to discuss the toxicity of women and men as though we were on a level playing field, that is not a mistake either. That's a motivated reasoner. It's somebody who's kind of concerned trolling a little bit, acting like they're just really trying to be nice, but really they're just trying to squash you in the conversation. I haven't seen that. You'd have to link me or it didn't happen. Yeah, whatever. That's somebody not actually trying to talk to you like an adult. And then when we get to the real worst part are the fake survivors. So a lot of times I will actually go through the whole conversation even when somebody is trolling me, because I know that there are other people observing the conversation, lurking the conversation, and I'm just putting it out there. So it has been absolutely brutal. I get almost no social support for this. But whatever, I don't care. Like, I'm already marginalized, so if they just want to marginalize me until I don't even bother to vote, then it's up to them. It's up to society whether they'd like to open the door and let me in or not. But if they're not going to let me in, then they should not ask me to clean up after their fucking party. So, the fake survivors are the absolute goddamn worst. They're the people who say things like, well, I'm a survivor too, and I'm voting for Biden. I don't have a problem with it. And then if you press them on it, they're almost always going to flee. Sometimes those are usually kind of dumber than average people who are not able to understand that you are actually telling the truth, because they're so rampantly dishonest in their own lives that they can't actually imagine. When I say I'm an actual child trafficking survivor, they can't imagine that that is real and true, and it actually means something, and you learn something by it, and that you can't possibly be gaslighted, because they're just little gaslight machines, and it's all they know to do. So those are the people who say, well, I'm a survivor too, and that is just simply to create, again, the whataboutism, the false level playing field, so that you are dismissed in your little opinion. If you push those motherfuckers, they never have a real rape story to tell you. They will sometimes say something like, well, that isn't rape. Rape leaves you screaming on the floor. Sounds super dramatic. Like, if I didn't actually know what I was talking about, I might be silenced by that. But unfortunately for that douchebag, I do. So my response to that little tirade, whatever the fuck that was, is that what happened to you? You were screaming on the floor? I was alert during most of my rapes, but I did lose consciousness a lot. But some of them I was fully conscious for. I didn't scream in any of them. You know what I mean? Like, whenever somebody tries to, that's one of your big red flags. When somebody tries to define rape for you, that isn't rape, this is rape. Are you trying to say that when Joe Biden just hugged somebody inappropriately or sniffed them, that's rape now? You're diluting the movement. Anybody who tells you you're diluting the movement is a fucking bullshitter. That is a person who unleash on them. If you are a real survivor and somebody tells you that you are diluting the movement by complaining about Joe Biden, like you're crying wolf on that shit, you should not cry wolf, you should become the wolf, okay? Everybody wants to be a wolf till it's time to do wolf shit, okay? So if somebody plays that bullshit with me, I'll have them. I will fucking have you for going there. So don't tell me that I am diluting the movement. Motherfucker, I am the movement. So they define rape, and they use themselves as an example. The one of the recent ones that I recall, she wanted to say, well, I was raped at 17 at gunpoint, but I don't let it define me. Okay, that's not credible. That's not realistic. She's trying to say that because I am informed by my rape history in every single thing that I do since 1972, through no choice of my own, like I don't have an alternative, honey. If you had been raped at gunpoint at age 17 or at any age, you would still not be okay about it, okay? You would not even think to say something so stupid as, I don't let it define me. Fuck that. Really? Is Joe Biden welcome to just touch anybody any way that he wants to? If you've been raped before, it should be pretty easy for you to say no. I have also, I mean, that's basically what I have to say about the fake survivors, the men's rights advocates against toxicity that we have on the left now. I've given you the red flags, and basically the thing is, especially when they're a fake rape survivor, if you push and challenge them on it, like Kellyanne Conway is the classic example of a fake-ass Me Too. She came out to shut people up about Brett Kavanaugh, and now we have a bunch of people doing the Kellyanne Conway on me about Joe Biden. See? But Kellyanne, when she was pressed on it, she said, well, I'm a survivor and I'm fine with it. Oh, been there, done that, honey. So just be mindful that a lot of people are voting for Biden who are really no better than Kellyanne Conway. They really are going to be that quick to lie and say that they're survivors, and somehow that has not informed their opinion. It's like when you are initiated into this club nobody ever wants to join, you really know the difference right away when you're talking to someone who has not been initiated, and you cannot pretend from the other direction that you know stuff, right? Like if I'm a real trauma surgeon, you can't be like a mechanic and walk up and bullshit me that you're an actual trauma surgeon. You can't. So that's what I wanted to say. The last point that I wanted to make about this, it has been, on the one hand, nice for me to see that there are many less people in the Me Too club than I had assumed, based on my personal experience. My life history, I had really thought that those of us who have been sexually assaulted, full-on assaulted and harmed physically, would be closer to 1/3 or 1/4. About closer to from 1/3 to 1/2 of the population of women. And I judging by what I've seen of the way Me Too is playing out, I would say it's closer to like 1/3 to maybe 1/4 of the population. We really have no voice even now. And this Joe Biden for president thing is just like a lot of men and unraped women trying to tell me that that's the best my life can ever get. Like that's the best I can hope for, is somebody who did not apologize, claims he's going to do better in the future, did the opposite of apologize, told us to go fuck ourselves, basically. I would rather die than pull the trigger on that shit. So the last thing I wanted to mention about it is I've been shocked. I've been kind of glad to see, like I just said, that there are not as many Me Too survivors as I thought there were, but at the same time it's demoralizing to see how many people really are the white people that MLK warned us about, that are like perfectly comfortable with male privilege, perfectly comfortable with rape culture, and do not have our backs as a result. And people don't understand that when it comes to rape culture, you're either in support of the survivors or the rapists. There is no way to be in the middle. And if you are in support of Joe Biden, you are on team rape culture for sure. The last thing that I've been trying not to say about this, because it kind of hurts me to even say it, it really hurts me to see how many of the gay guys and of the Black Lives Matter guys are absolutely not in my corner on this. Like I'm 100% for them being treated as humans 100% of the time. I'm not okay with people violating them. I'm not okay with people, abusing them on sight because of the way that they were born or the person that they are. That should not make them a wide open target. So it really fucks with my head how many of them are very quick to support Joe Biden and very much in favor of their own male privilege. Male privilege is very real. And it is absolutely the linchpin holding rape culture into place. If just my gay guys could empathize with women a little bit more about how disgusting it is to deal with straight men and be constant targets of their bullshit, we'd have this a lot more. So thank you guys for listening. When I figure out how to get back into my website at teresavalentino.com, I will post some written stuff.